Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar. I am Danielle Kinney. I am a college admissions counselor at College Hive. We are located in San Jose, California, but we help students from across the United States, not just in the Bay Area. My focus is working with student athletes on their recruitment and application process, but our team here works with student athletes and non athletes. We help all students with their application process, everything from building a college list to SAT and ACT prep, which we'll talk about today, to essays, financial aid, every piece of the application process. We are here to support you. We have a series of webinars that we'll be putting on over the next couple of weeks. This one is focused on standardized testing, but we'll have webinars on essay writing and financial aid, and those all will be made available through our website and through our YouTube channel here. This is being recorded, so if there's any piece of this presentation that you miss, these will all be available to watch afterwards. So, like I said, today's webinar is SAT and ACT. We'll be discussing standardized testing as part of the college admissions process. We'll be talking about the key differences between the two tests in terms of format, scoring, reporting, and which test might be right for you as a student, or if you're a parent joining us, or if you're a counselor, which test might be the right one for your students. We'll also be covering a special section on student athletes for those who are interested in the recruiting process and how standardized testing is a part of that. So before we get into the nitty-gritty of each test, what are these tests? Historically, colleges have used them as a common metric to compare applicants. In recent years, many colleges have become test optional or test blind, while others do require them still. And many still consider scores for things like academic scholarships. Both are standardized college entrance exams in the United States, and many colleges accept both ACT and SAT. In recent years, many colleges have become test optional or test blind, but like I said, many do still require them and consider scores for scholarships. In terms of the format, the SAT is now fully digital in the United States. The SAT also has a digital format in many locations. So let's jump into the differences in the test and structure comparison. There are two main sections for the SAT: reading and writing, and then math. The total testing time for the SAT, excluding breaks, is 2 hours and 14 minutes. There's no separate science section, which is different than the ACT. It's integrated into the two sections. The score range is anywhere from 400 to 1600, 1600 being the max score you can receive, and we'll talk about that breakdown in a minute. So each section has a max score of 800. You can use a calculator for the math section, which is also true of the ACT. And as I mentioned before, the SAT is now 100% digital, and we'll talk about how to access and prepare for that in a later section. There is no guessing penalty in the SAT, only correct answers count. In the ACT, there are 3 required sections: English, math, and reading. There is an optional section for science and an optional section for writing, which is an essay. And the way that the scoring works is that it's a composite score. So it's the average of the 3 tests, or 4 tests if you're including science. And then that number is rounded. And we'll talk about the scoring structure in a minute. The time depends on if you add the writing and science section. It's 2 hours and 5 minutes without either of those sections. And the writing section, which is the essay, is 40 minutes. There is a dedicated science section, which is optional now. Depending on what you plan to study as a student, you might want to include that, and we can talk about those strategies a little bit later. You are also allowed to use a calculator for the math section, just like on the SAT, and the format is either paper or online. So let's talk a little bit about the science section for the ACT. It is a reasoning section, so it's interpreting graphs and experiments and hypotheses. So it's a little different than the science that you'll see on the SAT, and we can talk about that in a later section. So the two sections for the SAT, you'll see the breakdown in terms of the number of questions and the time. You will also see that same breakdown for the ACT. The science section, the optional science section for the ACT is 40 questions and 35 minutes, and the writing section is one essay, and that is 40 minutes. So let's look at an example question. You might be a freshman or early or sophomore or early in your junior year, and maybe you have never seen the ACT or SAT before. So here's a sample of the ACT science section. This is a question from their free practice test. If you go to the ACT website, you'll be able to access all of their practice tests there. The left is a screenshot from the reading and writing section of the SAT, and the right is a question from the math section. To take the SAT practice test through the College Board, you will need to download the College Board's free app, which is called Blue Book, and you can download it from the App Store or Google Play Store. You will also need that app if you are planning on using your computer on test day. So it's beneficial to download it ahead of time. And of course, for practicing, it will be very important. So let's go through the scoring percentiles and reporting. You'll see that the score range for the SAT, you'll see that there's a max score of 800. The percentile ranking is going to be the same for both tests. It will basically show you how much better you performed than the other percentage of test takers. So, for example, if you scored a 1250, you might be in the 81st percentile, meaning you scored better than 81% of all test takers for that year. These numbers vary by year, so it's beneficial to look at the SAT or ACT website for more information on that. Superscoring allows you to combine your scores from each section, so your best scores from different dates. So it doesn't have to be from the same date that you took the test. It could be from different dates. It's the highest score for each section that you've ever received. This does vary by school. Some schools allow super scoring and some don't. So it's beneficial to look at the schools you're planning on applying to and see if they will allow a super score. Score reporting, since the SAT is digital, you'll receive those results within 3 to 5 days, which is really helpful in terms of managing stress and anxiety about the test. For the ACT, it's a composite score, so it takes the average of the three sections. If you are going to take just the three sections, English, math, and reading, you would add those scores together and then divide them by 3 and then round to the nearest whole number. So, for example, if you received a 30 in English, a 28 in math, and a 31 in reading, you would add those 3 together, divide by 3, which gives you 29.6, and it would be rounded up to 30. Super scoring, again, check with each college policy on this. It will depend on which schools you're applying to. So just to give you, because these tests are scored very differently, it's beneficial to be able to compare the two of them. So if you're going to take both and see how you perform, if you, let's say, got a 31 ACT score, that's about a 1390 SAT score. And that's based on the College Board ACT coordinates table. So you can go to our website, College Hive. We have examples of those in our blog section if you want to be able to compare your scores. And that's helpful when you are taking your diagnostic test and practice test to see which test might be better suited for you. So, before we discuss which test might be better suited for you, I would suggest taking a diagnostic test from both SAT and ACT. But generally speaking, SAT is better suited for analytical thinkers and strong readers who prefer analyzing text deeply and identifying patterns in reading passages, and students that are comfortable with algebra, heavy math, and multi step problem solving. And if you prefer more time per question, then the SAT's style is probably better suited for you. The SAT rewards students who excel in reading comprehension and critical thinking and math logic. The ACT is best suited for students who are fast thinkers and science minded students. So, if you process information quickly and can move fast through questions, if you prefer straightforward, concrete questions over dense passages, if you are comfortable with a wider variety of math, including trig, and you like data interpretation and you can reason through scientific graphs and charts, then the ACT might be better suited for you. The ACT generally benefits students with strong time management skills and have who are comfortable in science and multi-subject testing. So again, my recommendation is that you try both. You might say, I am more of a science and data analysis person, and then you might be surprised that you prefer the SAT or vice versa. So I would suggest taking both, practice diagnostic test, and see which one you prefer. Some schools or scholarship programs may prefer one test over the other, so check on their policies. Some academic scholarships often require standardized testing scores, so even if you are applying to schools that are test optional, you need to make sure that you understand what the requirements are for any sort of scholarships. Just to summarize, if you have stronger science, graph, and data skills, the ACT's science section might play to your strengths. So here are the dates for the 2025-2026 school year. Registration dates are usually 3 to 4 weeks before the test, so make sure that you plan ahead. As promised, I did want to address student athletes. So the NCAA has permanently eliminated the standardized testing requirements for D1 and D2 eligibility, but testing still matters. As I mentioned before, in order to be eligible for certain merit scholarships or academic scholarships, you likely will need to take either standardized test. Some colleges might recommend test scores. Some coaches might want to see test scores. It will really depend on the coach and the program. And this is a great time or a great reason to communicate with coaches. If you've just taken the one of the standardized tests and have a score that you want to share with coaches, that's a great touch point and a reason to communicate with them and stay in front of them. We have a separate webinar about recruiting and whatnot, but it's a great reason to talk to coaches and to ask them what is required for their program. What would they like to see in order for them to feel comfortable moving forward with the recruitment process? And once you do have scores, like I said, it's just a great way to, reach out and say, hey, Coach Susan, I just took the SAT and here's my score. Just wanted to let you know. But like I said, it is important that you ask coaches what they would want. And it's important to remember that as a student athlete, you have a ton on your plate. You have games and practices and training and tournaments and your regular schoolwork. So it's important to plan ahead so that you can balance your test prep with your training schedule. So the cost is essentially the same. There are fee waivers for both tests. So if you think that you might be eligible for that, you can go to either the SAT or ACT website and receive a waiver through them directly. So before we get to the Q&A section, I did want to mention a couple of preparation resources. I had mentioned it before, Khan Academy. So for the SAT, Khan Academy is their official partner. They have free personalized practice test. The College Board's blueprint app, which I mentioned before, sorry, Blue Book, not Blueprint, Blue Book, also has practice test. That's the app, I mentioned before, and you will need to have download that if you want to use your own computer on test day. So you can go to the SAT website and you'll see all the resources there. For the ACT, the official ACT self-paced course is free with a fee waiver. There is an ACT Academy that they offer, which is also a free online learning tool. All of these practice tests and pre-SAT diagnostic tests can be found at act.org. Another great resource are your school counselors and testing coordinators. They might have additional resources for you, including prep books. Your local libraries will also likely have prep materials that you can check out for free. Practice tests, as I mentioned, through the College Board or through ACT are a great place to start. So, key takeaways just to wrap this up: both tests are widely accepted by colleges. Choose the one that is the right fit for you and plays to your strength as a student. Take practice tests for both to see which one you prefer and where you feel the most comfortable. Most students take the test 2 to 3 times. Improvement is common, especially if you started early, like as in your sophomore year, where you might not have learned a lot of the concepts that you're being tested on. But there is overtesting. So if you are going to test after the third time, meaning taking the test a fourth or fifth time, you likely are not going to see any improvement. So just take that into account, especially if you're planning out when you want to start taking these tests. If you want to apply early, early decision, early action, what that timeline is. So register early, mark the test dates on your calendar so that you can start planning, especially if you're a student athlete and you'll likely be required by the coaches that are recruiting you to apply early decision. So as a student athlete, you do need to take that into account, that early decision deadlines are in the fall of your senior year. One question that I see popping up, and I've been asked this quite a bit, is whether or not to submit test scores for test optional schools. So, this is a case by case decision. It's really hard to advise someone without seeing their scores and without knowing what schools they're applying to. Generally, if you are close to or above their median reported score, that's a good indication that you should submit it. But it really depends on a lot of factors, and not just the overall total score, but your score in each section, especially if you are going to declare a major in one of those sections. So, for example, if you didn't really perform well in the math section, but you want to be a math major, schools are going to see that. And so, even though your overall score might be really strong, they might see your section scores being low and then looking at their overall scores. So if you do have questions about your situation, I would say reach out to us at College Hive and we can discuss the various strategies. So that's it for today's webinar. Thank you for joining. As I mentioned before, we have a series of webinars from essay writing to financial aid that will all be on our YouTube channel and on our website. Please feel free to reach out to us with any specific questions about your situation, whether you're a student or parent or a counselor. We are happy to help. So good luck to everybody in your standardized testing and college admissions journey.